Māori, I'm Alice Lolohea. Welcome to the Pacific.
Half a day, I'm Johnson Raela. Great to have you join us. Here's what's coming up on the show today.
Tonga's Prime Minister addresses the region's growing drug trade as he sits down with Marian Kupu.
Political instability in Solomon Islands.
And we get down with the Spectrum Collective.
But first, some news from around the region. And Alisi, a mysterious fish kill in PNG is finally getting some attention.
That's right, Johns. The national government has responded publicly to locals in New Ireland province who've watched dead fish wash up on their shores for months.
Residents in villages dotted across the island's northern coast want the government to help, saying they've witnessed a sudden deterioration in the marine environment.
So many of these species are dying along the coast. Now, this is not normal. Something's happening which we don't know about. The eyes are gone in all of them.
Locals have been told to avoid eating the fish, impacting their access to food and income.
People are really sad because they don't eat the fish now and we don't know when are we going to eat the fish.
But it's not just the sea life. Many locals who've come in contact with seawater have also become unwell, experiencing skin irritation and burning, and in a few cases, symptoms associated with the cold and flu.
Especially the kids was there last swimming in the sea, playing around the beach. And now when we stopped them, and they were really sad.
Locals say they're still waiting for the results of government water testing.
Communities have been left with no answers for 4 months, and the Environmental Protection Authority in PNG, SEPA, has kept them waiting continuously. And that leaves local villagers, coastal fishers, youth and elders in turmoil.
Local NGOs have begun providing some aid to affected communities, but locals want more help from the government.
So far, the government's only given 3 water tanks to the most affected and original root cause communities in Kafkaf village.
And while experts have suggested the issues could be the result of an algal bloom or even contamination from industry, it's impossible to say for sure without scientific assessment. For its part, the government has promised action within weeks.
At this point of time, it's really hard for me to tell you what chemical it is because we're looking at all options. There's a lot of activity along that coast there. They're looking at different types of chemicals that they're using and they're testing. So it gives us about a week or two and we should have a solution for you.
And in Tonga and Samoa, 2 senior politicians have been found guilty of election-related bribery in separate cases.
In Samoa, the Electoral Court has unseated Deputy Prime Minister Tuailupe Poulinuku Onesemo after finding he was linked to a payment of just 150 tala made to influence a voter during last year's election. The court ruled the payment, made by a man acting as his agent, crossed the line into bribery, voiding the result in his seat and triggering a by-election. Judges warned that even small payments can undermine trust in democracy, adding that no one is above the law. The case also revealed allegations of a much larger payment, around 100,000 tala, now referred to authorities for further investigation. Meanwhile, in Tonga, the country's finance minister has been found guilty of indirect bribery over a scheme to distribute plastic bags of sliced fish to voters during last year's election. The Supreme Court found he consented to the handout in what it deemed an attempt to buy support.
Okay, staying in Tonga now, where the region's newest Prime Minister, Lord Fatawhihi Whakawhanua, has just marked his first 100 days in office.
So how is he doing? Since coming to power, he's taken on some major challenges: debt to China, a drugs crisis and a struggling national airline.
As only the second noble in the top job since constitutional reforms in 2010, questions have also been raised about the nobility's role in government.
Our Tonga reporter Marian Kupu sat down with him in Nuku'alofa.
Let's just address this directly. Some people are saying that having a prime minister from the nobility desk is a step backward from democracy. What would you say to them?
I would say that we're using different rulers to measure democracy. And the ruler that I'm using is the Tongan Constitution. And the Constitution allows for 9 Nobles representatives to be elected into Parliament and 17 People's representatives to be elected from the People's 17 constituencies. I ran as a candidate, not just as a candidate for the nobility, but as a candidate from Tonga, as a Tongan citizen and as a Member of Parliament representing Hapai. I ran against the former Prime Minister and won fair and square in a very transparent process that's very democratic.
You did mention in the beginning that you wanted to unite the Parliament. How has that been going?
Since Parliament opened and we swore in the members of Cabinet, Parliament members, and also appointed the chairs of all the select committees in Parliament, we haven't met yet, but I am quite confident that a lot of the unity that we are talking about at the start, from the outset, has already begun. In terms of Hapai, being the first Prime Minister from Hapai, I'm very proud to say that the Hapai Development Committee has already met. We have some priority agendas for the people of Hapai, and despite what people are saying in terms of the relationship that me as a member of nobility and from Hapai, we are working together and very closely with the 2 representatives from Hapai 12 and 13. In the coming weeks and in the next few months, we'll be delivering street lights, solar lights to the communities in Hapai, as well as outboard motors, engines that would support the local fisheries, not just in our estate as Noble representatives, but also in the constituencies for Hapai 12 and Hapai 13. So I think that's part of the tangible results of the unity that we're working with. And apart from the unity we have in government and our cabinet, we're extending that to local government and through non-cabinet members in Hapai.
Let's step into the other shady, darker side of Tonga, which involves with drugs. Drug is a growing issue here in Tonga. How serious is it to you?
The issue with illicit drugs in Tonga is the fact that those that are affected in the country are not only impacting themselves, but are creating social harm that impacts your community, your family. The social fabric of Tonga is at stake if we are not careful. And so the government has a 3-pronged approach: supply reduction, demand reduction, and harm reduction. And evidently, what we've experienced is that the work that the government has been doing, both the current government and previous governments, on supply reduction is working. The amount of illicit drugs that is captured around the region is due to the cooperation of interagencies, not just in the Pacific, but in the wider region. That sharing of intelligence has captured drugs that were destined for Tonga, through Tonga, into Australia and New Zealand. And the amount of prosecutions and the successful results of those investigations has meant that we are now seeing more lifers in jail in Tolitoli than in the history of Tonga. And that's a result of the work that we've been doing on supply reduction. My focus now with the Illicit Drugs Task Force is to move and focus less, even though it's as important and the work is still ongoing, on supply, but more on demand and harm reduction. And for the first time since we called the first meeting this year of the Illicit Drugs Task Force, we involved the non-government organizations. And in allocating the $5 million that is budgeted by the government for harm and supply and demand reduction, we'll be involving directly the non-government organizations. And this is also timely because last year the government and Parliament approved the Youth Diversion Program, which means that youth are now diverted from the courts back to their communities. So working with non-government organizations such as the Salvation Army will be handling the children and the future of Tonga outside of the legal system so that their opportunities for getting work, for getting visas, for travel is not compromised because of a record and because of the poor decisions that they've made in the past. So we're focusing on harm and on top of the supply reduction, we're focusing on harm reduction and demand reduction.
We've seen new funding from New Zealand recently, but is Tonga becoming too dependent on partners?
Look, Tonga is a donor-dependent country. That is a matter of fact. And part of the focus of the current government is on empowering our economic base. And that is so that we can move from being a dependent country on donor support to an economically empowered country. And that means that we need to have concerted effort in a countrywide response to our current dilemma. And that is, we are not truly sovereign until we have total control of our fiscal books. And from Tonga's overdependence on bilateral and multilateral aid to our heavy indebtedness, these all take away from our sovereignty. And as a new government, these are all inherited problems, one that we are looking to resolve and nip in the bud.
Another factor that you mentioned recently is the repayment of the loans to China, which we're looking at the end of it by 2030. You've also mentioned that the repayment of loan that could have been used to fund domestically, but however, we have New Zealand and Australia stepping in also to help with our financial problems. Is it safe to say that New Zealand and Australia is somewhat helping Tonga to pay the loans when they are stepping in to cover the void of what we could have used that funding domestically?
Look, I think hindsight is 20/20. It's easy to say, oh, maybe we shouldn't have taken the loan. But the fact is, previous governments made that commitment. And as leader of the government, I think that Tonga should abide by its contractual obligations, irrespective of where the geopolitics is and what country we owe money to. We took out a loan, we're committed to paying it, and we'll pay it off by 2030.
You're coming up with your 100 days. What decision that you have delivered that you're so proud of?
Well, this decision is regarding the Lolohea, which is a government-owned company. It's been a hot potato for previous governments. And in starting the board as chair of the government-owned enterprise, I told the board that we won't be accepting any meeting fees, which came as a shock, but I believe it's important for us to be a profitable organization and that Lolohea delivers its mandate of bringing safe, reliable and efficient domestic air travel. Lolohea is in a transitional period. We accept that the fiscal books aren't where we want it to be. And so we've had a few unsolicited proposals to augment and support Tonga's domestic air services. The CEO for Air New Zealand was also here as well, and we've had great meetings and conversations with him that will follow up in terms of Tonga's air connectivity to New Zealand. But Chatham is here, and we've initiated discussions. I've directed him to our new CEO at Lolohea, and we will evaluate each proposal on its merits.
In one sentence, with no politics, what kind of country do you want Tonga to be in the next 10 years?
In the next 10 years, I want Tonga to be resilient, to be prosperous, to be independent, and to be sovereign.
Solomon Islands could be headed for another political shake-up following the mass resignation of 12 government ministers, led by now former Deputy Prime Minister Frederick Kologetu.
Weeks out from marking 2 years as Prime Minister, Jeremiah Manelia is facing pressure from a growing opposition coalition.
We see ourselves as the government in waiting.
Speaking to media this week, opposition MP Peter Kinaloria Jr. said the bloc has 28 MPs in their camp. He called on Mr Manele to convene the 50-seat parliament.
We already have the number. We already have the majority. We're all about majority rule.
Mr Kinaloria Jr. sparked debate online by posting this photo showing the opposition majority, including ex-Prime Minister Darcy Gordon-Lilo, opposition leader Matthew Wale and Peter Chanel Aguavaka, who walked out as Mr Manele's foreign minister last week. But the Prime Minister hit back.
A photograph is only a snapshot in time. A vote in Parliament is the constitutional determination.
Mr Manele responded by reshuffling his cabinet, appointing new ministers and urged Solomon Islanders to remain calm.
Cabinet is functional. We have a quorum in cabinet. Quorum in cabinet is 12 plus 1. At the moment we have 16 or 17 ministers.
Resign from your position that you've now lost numbers. Accept that.
For now, Prime Minister Manele holds on to power, but what happens next will echo far beyond Solomon Islands. Honiara sits at the centre of a strategic contest as China, Australia and the United States vie for influence across the Pacific.
Since taking office in 2024, Mr Manele has stared down 2 no-confidence votes. Could he overcome a third? For more, I'm joined by our Solomon Islands reporter, Christianrita Manuleong in Honiara. Hello to you, Chrissy.
Hello to you, Johnson.
Now, firstly, what do you think is behind the split?
Well, prior to this, Johns, we have seen unresolved differences among the GNUT coalition. Before the mass resignation happened, the coalition consisted of 4 parties, including the People's First Party, where its 10 ministers were the very first to defect. Now, followed by that, the backbenchers also, triggering this immediate shift in parliamentary balance. So these unresolved differences are, as we understand, are mostly domestic issues. It includes the use of sufferance wharves, the pending audits on Pacific Games and the economic stimulus package, among some others. But we have heard from country's Prime Minister Jeremiah Manele saying he respects the decisions made by the MPs who resigned. When the media put forward the question to the MPs who resigned, their spokesperson, Honourable Peter Chanel, said that the big reveal of those reasons would happen in Parliament when they sit, but also he did say it became rather a bit toxic and that they couldn't see eye to eye on certain issues. And so to protect the integrity of their party, they made this decision to withdraw. So in terms of when this will be resolved, well, Johns, your guess is as good as mine.
Now, one name we always see pop up every now and again when there's political tension is Manase Sogavare. He's the new Deputy Prime Minister. He's been Prime Minister 4 times. Where do you think he sits in all of this?
Well, like you mentioned, Mr. Sogavare is no stranger to Solomon politics. On a domestic front, he was part of the current government just after the elections 2 years ago. And he also was the same person to have led a group of ministers and MPs to walk out from the same government. In the region, Mr. Sogavare made headlines, obviously, when he established relations with China in 2019 and having an often fraught relationship when it comes to Australia. But Johns, he is back again with the government, and experts say that his return could be seen as trying to salvage the government side, but also one that comes at a time when the government is facing a vote of no confidence. Mr. Sogavare has told local media that his return is based on national interest. It may be still too early to see what that looks like, but if history was perhaps something to go by, Mr. Sogavare's move could be strategically placed to emerge as the next leader. Some have said, and have argued that he has the experience, he's got the political mindset and commands the respect. If it reaches to that stage, that might ruffle some feathers in Canberra.
Now, lastly, Chrissy, I just want to shift gears a little bit and take a quick step away from politics and talk about football. Now, Solomon Islands recently hosted round 4 of the OFC Pro League, and from what I've seen, the vibes were vibing. from the local fans. Now, you went along. Give us a quick rundown.
I did, and it certainly was vibing, Johns. It's just a powerful reminder of how much football actually means to our people and the passion also for the game. So there were sold out tickets. We're talking 10,000 seats, and not just once, twice for the Solomon Kings game. The crowd, the atmosphere, it was just simply unmatched energy reverberating along the national stadium. Truly a unifying factor. Fans also not only showed up for the host, but also for all the teams in the Pro League, and we wish them well in the next round. But that truly reflected the saying that Solomon Islands is the Happy Isles.
Chrissy, thank you very much for that update. Thank you, Tomas.
Thank you, Thomas Johns.
One of the many joys we have working on the show is getting to shine the spotlight on our many Pasifika artists as they share their talents around the world.
And today, we've got a story from Tanzania, where a collective of Pacific artists of all kinds from across the region recently made a splash at the Adelaide Fringe Festival.
And a big thanks to Evelyn Leckie and Brant Cumming for their help with the story.
To display this kind of music that we'll be performing tonight, it's not what many would consider to be the mainstream in Fiji, or even in the Pacific for that regard. The kind of things that we're pulling tonight, it's different, right? And that just reminds me that in Fiji and in the Pacific is not a monolith, and it's a very dynamic culture. We're one people connected by the ocean, but we're also so different and unique.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
So, Spectrum Collective, part of it is that most of us in the group are on the spectrum. We're all based in Fiji, but come from all across the Pacific and all across the world. So there's a spectrum of that. We've got a spectrum of music genres, the different styles that we'll be performing. We've got a spectrum of art forms as well.
It sounds that sang when creation began.
So it's an improvisational live painting part of the show. So I have a canvas, and I don't really know what it's going to look like until the end, which is exciting. I see it as similar to the mark making we have with tapa, with our textiles, with tattoo, and all of that in the Pacific. It's recording a moment in time and in space, and recording parts of our culture, which is ever evolving. It's a really fun time. The band is then jamming, vibing off of what I'm doing, and it's a really immersive, kind of multi-sensory experience and a special part of our show, I think. So the improvisational part of all of this and the practice of live painting versus having an idea of what it's going to be and then trying to replicate that touches a cultural thread for me. Just not knowing what the waves are going to do, but trusting that there's something on the end that's worth the journey.
No longer shall we live by the lines that divide.
In the Pacific region, many of our brothers and sisters are still fighting for their right to be themselves, to have their self-determination, for justice, right? For their own autonomy. We as a region should stand together in solidarity. And so one of our biggest messages is echoing these words that no one is free until we are all free. And since freedom of expression is so important with Spectrum, freedom as a concept is so important with Spectrum.
Free West Papua, free Kanaki, free all Pacific Island peoples who are still suffering in injustice, and give them the right to self-determination.
I like talking to the sound engineers at the back. I like to get their feedback, and so far they've just been like, this is something different. This is something new, and also if I see someone dancing in the crowd, that's enough for me. I've done my part. If I see someone nodding their head or just like moving a bit, I'm doing my job, and that's it. That's end of the chapter for me. When you do find the right group of people and stuff, the support group, it really, you will go beyond anywhere you've dreamed to or dreamed of going. Like, I didn't even know I was going to be playing music in Australia. Like, usually we're just playing around at home or go as far to another island, but I'm in Australia and it's the beginning of the year. Who knows what the rest of the year holds?
And next week on The Pacific, we're bringing you a special episode about the American territory of Guam.
As the United States builds up its military presence, some say it's vital for security.
But the buildup is dividing the island, from soaring living costs to environmental damage, and a deeper question about who gets a say in Guam's future.
We're brainwashed. They're brainwashed. Our people are brainwashed that the military is important to be here. It's not that. It's not true.
What else does someone from Guam have to do to prove their patriotism? How much more blood do we have to shed?
We have pretty much the highest enlistment rates per capita into the military, and it's provided a lot of opportunities for young adults, young kids, and people who aspire to serve for a higher calling.
You describe Guam as part of the American homeland, but the people here don't have the same rights as people of the US homeland.
I think that is really a matter for the government of Guam and the United States government.
Hey there, I'm looking for Lee.
If there was no military, this island economy would be down now. It would be shut off. There'd be no money coming in.
But at the end of the day, the real interest for the United States in Guam is military.
Okay, we are on our way to see the governor of Guam.
Who really would you rather be under, the US or China?
This is generational harm, and we have high incidence of cancer, heart disease, diabetes.
That is what it means to live in a militarized colony like Guam. It means that militarization is your meat and drink. It is the air that you breathe.
Our families have gone off island because of the cost of living or whatever. Showing them this, how it's like a family, that, that's important to us.
That's it for the show. You can keep up to date with all our stories on the ABC News YouTube channels.
And for more Pacific news, check out ABC Pacific on our social platforms. Malo au pito homo mea mai.
Mo mea, ova atu.